Okay, to do these problems, I'm going to be flipping back and forth. So get yourself prepared for that, from the problems to our big chart, okay, which I have right underneath here. So suppose the heights of adult males normally distributed with a mean of 70 and a standard deviation of 2. So we're going to draw our normal curve, which is going to look, I know that's kind of hard to draw, something like this. We're going to do our mean at 70, that's right in the middle, and our standard deviation of 2 tells me to add on and subtract off 2 from each number. So I'm going to get that drawn on my paper. And then the question says, what percent of adult men are taller than 70? So here's the 70, and they just want to know what percent are taller than 70. Now we actually learned how to do that yesterday. That's just half the curve, so that's 50%. That one's pretty easy, but we're going to get a little bit harder in just a minute. So the next question is, what percent of adult men are taller than 72? Now you can see that is not quite half anymore. Half was at the peak. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, okay, 72 is one standard deviation above the mean. So if I go and look at my big chart, one standard deviation above the mean is here. They wanted to know taller than this, so that would be all of this here. So I'm going to take my percentages that are out here and just add them up. So I have 13.5, 2, and 0.5. That 0.5 represents from there on out forever, okay? So taller than 72, right here is 13.5. This piece is 2, and this piece is 0.5. All right, and if you go to your calculator, if you're not sure what that is, and you add it up, you should get 16%. Okay, so we're getting a little bit more picky with these numbers than we were yesterday. So if we want to, we can go ahead and fill in the rest of these numbers. If you can remember them, this is 34%, this is 34%, this is 13.5, this is 2, and this is 0.5%. What percent of our adult male are shorter than 66? You need to look where 66 falls. 1, 2 standard deviations below the mean. Shorter than that would be that way. So we just want those two pieces right there. Or if you want to see it, 2 standard deviations below the mean and then shorter. That's 2 plus 0.5, which equals 2.5%. And what percent of adult men are between 64 and 72? So now we want to look between 64 and 72. We want to look in between here. So 64, 72, what's between them? Well, it looks like I have a 2, a 13.5, a 34, and a 34. So I'm going to add all that up. I'm going to go to my calculator if I don't know what that is. And I'm getting 83.5%. And then the last thing they're asking me to do is take all those same questions, and this time, instead of asking what percent, which you have to do first, what if I say how many men is that? So if I have 50% of my group is taller than 70, well, what if we have 150 men total? This is our total. So for question A, instead of saying what percent are taller than 70, they're saying how many men out of 150 are taller than 70. So that's 50% of 150. Go to your calculator if you don't know what that is. And 50% of 170 is 75 men. So question B wants to know how many men out of the 150 are taller than 72. So we already did the taller than 72 was 16%. So we know that, but now it's of 150. If you don't know how to do that, you go to your calculator and you type 0.16. times 150. 0.16, that's 16% of 150, so that's 24 men. So we would expect about 24 out of 150 to be taller than 72. That's what 16% represents. For C, how many men are shorter than 66? So we already did the shorter than 66 is 2.5%, but now we know that's out of 150 people. So in my calculator, that's 0.025, change 2.5 to a decimal, times 150. Now the answer is 3.75, and you can't have a portion of a person, but that's okay. You can leave it like that, or you could say about 4. That doesn't matter. That's insignificant. And the last question for D, what percent were between 64 and 72? We already added up the percentages, and we got 83.5%, but that's of 150. Remember, in your calculator, you're going to convert that to a decimal. And when you type that in, you get 125.25 men. It's okay if you make that 120.